Good afternoon and welcome to today's virtual information session. My name is Joshua Lewa and I'm the Associate Director for Admissions and Recruitment here at the Brown School. Each month we cover a variety of topics that folks who write in are interested to learning about the Brown School community and the people who make up the work that we do, and I'm really excited about this month's topic. Today's topic is our faculty, and we actually have a couple of faculty members who are going to join us for the first part, followed by an additional faculty member who's going to join us this afternoon. So without further ado, I'd like to give our guests a chance to introduce themselves. So today we have Dr. Sarita Barnes and Dr. Daryl Hudson. So if you could, for a moment, share with us your name, your role at the Brown School, areas of research or teaching, and any other interests that you'd like to share with our audience.
Hi, I am Sarita Barnes. I am an assistant professor here at the Brown School. I'm a developmental psychologist by training, and my research interest centers around understanding how racism impacts Black adolescents' academic achievement and their psychosocial adjustment outcomes. So focusing on risk and resilience factors. My areas of teaching surround theory, how we can use theory in terms of best practice, and also exploring community school models, which is very supportive of adolescents' development.
Great, thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Daryl Hudson. I'm an associate professor here at the Brown School. I've been here since 2011. My research focuses on racial ethnic health inequalities, so trying to figure out ways to reduce inequalities and disparities that disproportionately affect minorities, particularly African Americans and other people of color. I look a lot at the intersect of race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic position. And so I've had a number of studies that examine just that, looking at different health outcomes since I'm in the public health program. In terms of teaching, I teach a number of different foundational courses like health behavior and health promotion. I teach a youth violence prevention course that I just started this spring. And I teach a course called Popular Culture and Public Health.
Great. Thank you both for being here. I really appreciate your presence. And so I think what we're going to do is jump right into the questions. So we'll, just to kind of give a layout for the format, we'll spend a little time together and then we'll take a little break and show some important dates, and then we'll have an additional faculty member join us. But right into the questions. So the Brown School, I think we would agree, is a pretty exceptional place. And I'm just curious if each of you can share your story. What was your path to becoming a faculty member and joining us here at the Brown School?
Sure. So as I stated earlier, I am a developmental psychologist, and I wanted to be at a place that also supported my discipline, but also promoted the engagement and rewarded faculty members for being in the community and for having a strong relationship with community members and organizations. And so when I was looking for jobs as an assistant professor, I came across the Brown School of Social Work, went to faculty members' profiles, and saw the dynamic work they were involved in within the community. And that is a place that I wanted to be at. And so it's sort of the best of both worlds. I get to be and practice within my main discipline, but I also am rewarded by going out and doing things within the community. And so for me, it was really finding a place that rewarded faculty for being in the community, that promoted evidence-based practice and interventions, and just supported faculty holistically.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so a lot of the same reasons that Sarita mentioned drew me to the Brown School. I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area before I moved here. And so when I was looking for a job, I was looking for places that supported research, so a strong research infrastructure, which Washington University and the Brown School in particular have a very strong research infrastructure. So I know some questions will focus on research and what we do and what does that mean, but that was a big thing for me. I think that being in a school that, like Sarita mentioned, cares about the community that it's in, both locally and globally, and every piece in between. So a lot of our faculty do work that is locally based. St. Louis has become sort of like a epicenter for what's happening in terms of social justice. With Ferguson being in our backyard, there's no way to ignore that. And so there's been a lot of support to do work that's locally based around the inequalities that we see here. There's also a lot of work that happens internationally. So there's a number of faculty who do work that's global. So wherever work that you do, I think there's supports here to support it and to try to do the best job that you can. So those are the primary reasons. I think for me, being in a school where there was good representation in terms of racial ethnic representation, both in the student body and on the faculty, was also very important for me. And so in St. Louis is surprisingly grown on me a lot. I never thought I would live in St. Louis, but it's a neat place to live. It's a affordable place to live, which is important, especially moving here from California. So it's a neat place to live. So I think those are some of the main reasons why I came here.
That's great. I think we share quite a few things in common, especially when it comes to affordability. It's a very attractive trait about St. Louis. So you kind of really teed one up for us here. We believe that here at the Brown School about evidence-based research and turning that into practice, which is of critical importance for students, especially preparing them for their futures in the field or as researchers or as policymakers. And so I want to ask you, what does research and policy and publishing look like for faculty here at the Brown School, based on your experience and maybe representing the voices of your colleagues who are not here in the room?
Sure. And so in my opinion, how this looks is the fact that, at some institutions you have a publish or perish type of sort of mentality. And I don't think the Brown School has that. I think that we are encouraged through our research to try to put some applicability and try to do some applied aspect of it and impact the community. And then we're rewarded for that. And so we're writing, but also we're encouraged to, okay, well, how does this impact the community? And so in that way, this is how we're all encouraged, I think, through all of our disciplines and our research to sort of inform ourselves about evidence-based practice, but also to sort of practice what we preach. And I think the research is stellar here, but also what I enjoy is just hearing about others' research and then how the applied aspect of that within the community, within a larger community. I think that's sort of what research and publishing here looks like.
Fantastic. Joe, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, sure. I think that the Brown School has made a big name for itself from the research that's conducted here. And so whether it's a transdisciplinary approach, whether it's dissemination and implementation research, a lot of the centers and the faculty that we have here, that's what makes the Brown School reputation as strong as it is. So one of our tenets is evidence-based practice. So we're trying to figure out ways to solve complex social problems, whether it's public health, social work, social policy, or anything in between. We're trying to figure out ways to apply theory, like Sarita mentioned, and figure out ways to apply that theory and apply methods so that we can get an evidence base to make change, whether that change is in practice or policy. And so I think that there's a lot of different ways to get involved with research that faculty are doing. Each faculty has a different research portfolio, so there's lots of different opportunities to get involved, whether it's being a research assistant or just going to a colloquium and learning about research that's being done in the school. There's also a lot of different centers in the school. I can't remember how many we have, but we have quite a few centers. So there's lots of different ways to get involved with research that might be more fitting to whatever interest the students might have.
That's great, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we do have about 14 research centers and a couple of community partnerships, so there's a lot of opportunities to get connected and get involved in research. And I also love what the two of you shared about really focusing on evidence-based practice and actually having an impact. It's great to have theorized and to study communities and to study health disparities and a whole host of other issues, including education disparities and other things that we share in common. But the idea of actually making a difference and making a change through policy and practice guided by research, which is really important, which many of you may experience during the gap during your practice when you know when you're in an environment where folks aren't doing evidence-based practice. And so this is a place where we really get people prepared to have that mindset and going into the field. I want to talk about something else a little bit about our community. I mean, I'm just curious, just from your perspectives, how would you describe our community? One of the things that I always say is if folks are able to come and actually visit us, sit in in a class or meet with faculty members or administration, that's a great opportunity. But if you can talk a little bit about our community, how would you describe the Brown School community?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I can tee off. So I think that it's a very collegial environment, meaning that it's not a public. Sarita mentioned it's not a publisher pairs type of environment. It's not ultra competitive. So the students and the faculty, the staff that we have are all very talented, very high achieving, but we want to do the best that we can, and we cheer for each other. And so we don't have classes where students are competing with each other to try to be the top of the class. So I think that was very important for me in terms of, that's another reason why I ended up coming to the Brown School, is because there is a sense of people being nice. So we're in the Midwest, and I think people are genuinely nice here, and I think people really genuinely care about each other and the work that we're conducting. So I think it's a very laid back environment. Again, people are high achieving, but not overly competitive with each other. We're competitive in terms of publishing papers, getting grants, competing for grants, things like that, but we're not competitive with one another.
Fantastic.
And I would also say, just adding on to what Daryl said, I think it's an environment where we want to make sure that there is not only this equality, but it's this equity piece as well. So a social justice orientation. We also have, because it's transdisciplinary, folks wanting to collaborate with each other, you know, from different disciplines and different areas, sort of bringing our strengths together and really just trying to solve a problem. I think that's something that's very genuine about our faculty here, and I think that's something that I think we all strive for within our own unique disciplines, and all of it has sort of this social justice orientation to it as well.
That's great. I think you captured it really well. So at this point, we want to take a moment and switch on to a slide to share with you some really important information that's coming up. So as you can see in front of you, we have a handful of important information that we want to consider. One of them is March 1st is our regular decision priority deadline, which is tomorrow. So anybody who has their application completed by tomorrow should receive their answer within 6 to 8 weeks. And so if you have any questions about that, feel free to contact our office to make sure that we get that addressed for you. The second bit of information is after March 1st, we have rolling admissions, and so you're not done. If you have not completed your application by March 1st, we do have rolling admission. So we will continue to receive your applications and consider them for merit-based scholarships based on available. So if you have any questions or any concerns and you're still seriously interested about applying for the fall of 2018 for our MPH or MSW programs, please contact our office. If you're serious about it, we'll be serious about you, and we'll work with you to make sure you have an opportunity to show up at your best through your application, and so we can make that commitment to you today. The third date we have on there is our admitted student weekend. So for those of you who have your admission decision and you're still wanting to learn more about our community, that's April 6th and 7th. And so please look out for some information that should be coming out via email, and registration should be available soon. So this is a great way to engage current students, prospective students who have been admitted, who could be in your cohort next year, as well as faculty and staff. And finally, for those of you who are admitted as well, you can take advantage of brownschool.wustl.edu/ASW, which is our admitted student resource page. We also have our Facebook group, which is Brown School Admitted Students, and once admitted, you can request to join that page. That page is live. It's a great resource for admitted students to get connected with each other. We do roommate matching there and housing finding, and there are a lot of great useful tools that we are able to administer through that website. So I think we'll go back to our live session here, and I want to acknowledge and welcome Ryan Lindsay to our group. Ryan, we would like for you to introduce yourself, so thank you for being here, first of all.
Thank you for having me.
If you can take a moment, just tell us about who you are, your name, your role at the Brown School. I know you have multiple hats that you wear here at the university. What areas of research or teaching that you have, and any other interests that you think the audience would like to hear.
Sure. My name is Ryan Lindsay. I am the Assistant Dean for Social Work. In that role, what I'm responsible for is mainly overseeing and helping to ensure that our curriculum is up to date and that all of the potential students and students within our programming are getting the state-of-the-art education that they come here for. My primary appointment is as an associate professor of practice. What that means is in that position, I also chair the mental health concentration, which I bring several decades of practice experience in mental health services to our school. so that I can ensure that all of us new and future social workers practicing mental health have the practice skills necessary to be effective.
Great. I appreciate you sharing that with us. I'm going to get you in right now with,
Sure.
with a question, and then we'll kind of expand it out to the rest of the group. So in the classroom, if you could talk about that experience, what's your hope for the student experience in the classroom?
Yeah. I think every classroom environment is a little bit different, and I think the first thing that I think that makes a classroom an amazing space of learning is that people come with an open mind to learning. Learning is actually quite difficult, and it like challenges us, and it makes us feel a little, start to question, wait a minute, should I have known that? I didn't know that. And I think that when we're learning new things, having an open mind to the idea that there's lots that we don't know, and maybe we shouldn't necessarily have known something, that really creates an atmosphere that allows for everybody's perspective to be shared and new learning to happen. So I think that's the first thing. I think compassion, you know, not only as for in the MSW program, in the social work, as to be effective social workers, you have to come to this work with compassion. And I think when we come to the classroom with compassion, knowing that each of us come at with different baselines, and that we're all here in it together in order to create the kinds of change that each of us see for the future and how we want this world to be. And I think coming prepared is important. I think, you know, being in a program in graduate training, there's a lot of work to do, but I think the more prepared people come to class, the richer that experience is. If people haven't necessarily done the reading, then we can't expand on other than what was in the reading. And I think in my classrooms, the best classrooms that I have are ones which I don't have to regurgitate any of the reading, and I get to expand on and like fill in all the gaps that isn't written in a book. And I think that that's important. And I think finally, asking for help. I think as in life, the hardest thing to do is ask for help. And I think the earlier we ask for help, that we recognize that we may be facing new challenges, competing demands, and that most of faculty don't expect that people have everything, you know, organized and know how to do everything, and that this is a new learning experience. If you're coming from undergraduate, that education pedagogy is very different. The amount of work is different. If you're coming from the field because you've been working for a long time, it's a dramatic shift from that. And so I think knowing when to ask early and to actually utilize the resources that are around you to help you be successful.
That's great. Yeah. Thank you. I'd love to open that up to both Sarita and Daryl. If you can talk to us about what you hope or expect for the student experience in the classroom.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I think that Ryan sort of summed it up for me. I don't have anything to add, but I think the point of coming prepared, because I do think it's a bi-directional relationship, and I think that when students come prepared, you have sort of professors. I mean, it's an enriched learning opportunity, and it's a great experience on both. And just acknowledging individual differences of students in the classroom too, as well, that they might be from different areas of life, and just recognizing that it's a learning opportunity for everyone.
That's great.
Yeah, I would only add, I echo everything I agree with everything that Ryan and Sarita said. I think that one of the biggest things, and Ryan kind of alluded to this, is that we're in a professional school, so we're preparing professionals. And so we want to give you a toolkit that you can go out and explore the interests and the things that you're passionate about. And so you have to have a vested interest in wanting to do that. It's not undergrad part 2. So we want students to really engage and become active in the classroom. Part of that is through, like Ryan said, coming to class prepared, so reading the material and understanding it at a deeper level, so we're not looking to test you or quiz you on it, but we're trying to give you the foundations of what you'll need for your professional practice, whatever area that might be for you. I think the other thing is getting used to working in teams. A lot of students are not used to working in teams, especially in undergrad, and so, but that's how the world works. We work in teams, you get better products from people in teams, whether if you're in public health, thinking about going to a Centers for Disease Control and Prevention or a National Institutes of Health, everything is based on team. That's like the base organization, all those broader umbrellas of organizations. So you have to learn how to work with teams, you have to learn how to be professional, how to handle conflict, how to handle competing demands, how to deal with with real life. And so I think this is a good training ground for that in the classroom is professional development. So I think that's part and parcel of what we're trying to do at the Brown School. I think the other thing that is slightly different is outside of the classroom. So a lot of the opportunities that I've seen students who become really successful is that they engage outside of the classroom. That means going to lectures, that means going to different events where they can learn and soak up information and expand their networks. So I think that's incredibly important. A lot of people don't take advantage of that, and I think that's something we tell people when they get here. I'm telling it to you all, is to take advantage of being a student, because once you leave a university campus, you lose access to a lot of different things when you go out into the field. So I think the more you can take advantage of outside of the classroom, including especially relationships with faculty, because we're going to be the ones who write letters of recommendation for you or do reference checks for you, et cetera, et cetera. And so having substantive relationships with faculty is incredibly important.
That's great. I appreciate it. You can tell we clearly have a wealth of great knowledge and experience, and I know that all of you bring in a lot of leadership experience, and that's kind of some of what you shared with us reminds me of the idea of working with groups, understanding people outside of just the content knowledge, but the ability to have a high level of emotional intelligence and develop some strong leadership skills. We do believe that the Brown School prepares our students for leadership roles in whatever area they decide to go to in their future profession. So at this point, I'm going to read actually some questions that we received earlier this week. There was a lot of interest from a lot of you, actually a pretty high amount of interest from folks prior to our time together. And I know that I want to also encourage those of you who are watching live to go ahead and submit your questions online, and we'll receive those and we'll make sure to address whatever is appropriate. I want to give one caveat about this. There are some questions that we probably want to address that were really specific in nature, or maybe they went a little off topic, and so I want to encourage folks to email us at brownadmissions@wustl.edu. That's brownadmissions@wustl.edu. And that'll give you a chance to get some one-on-one conversations with our admissions staff to make sure that we answer those questions or connect you with the appropriate faculty or staff who can be able to answer some of those real specific laser-focused questions that kind of fell offline with what we're doing today. But with that being said, I'm going to throw out a handful of questions to all of you, and feel free to answer as many as you feel comfortable. So this first question I have is going to be, if there's a faculty member who shares your research interests, what is the best way to reach out to them for research opportunities or mentorship opportunities? So I just want to open it up to any of you.
So I would say go to the Brown School website and look at, you looked at the faculty profiles, but also like emailing. Emailing is great. I always have students that email me and ask to speak further if they're in the area or if they plan to visit. I'll meet with them and talk about research opportunities. That's one of the best ways that I can speak around, getting in contact with me is through email. Some students have phone call. That's fine too, but I think email for me is one of the best ways.
Sure. Yeah, I would say everything that Sarita said, getting familiar with our faculty profiles, and then trying to reach out. So whether it's email or setting up a phone call if you're not local and you can't visit, setting up a phone call to find out what we're currently working on. Oftentimes we're working on new things, so we're working on new projects that might not be on the website or on our CVs. So you won't know what new work that we're conducting right now. So I think that's a good way to have a conversation, whether it's in person or over the phone or exchanging emails, to find out what faculty are currently working on. And once you're on campus, I would say just do it. I mean, I think that we have a very open door policy. We're very approachable as a faculty. So if you find people that you're interested in working with, it's really easy to reach out to people via email or to drop by office hours, or if you're in a class with them, to stay a few minutes after and ask people what they're working on, if there's opportunities to work with people as students.
And I would encourage people to be persistent. Not annoying, but persistent. Effective in that. All of us have multiple roles. We get lots of email. We get a lot of communication. And just because we don't respond to you immediately doesn't mean that we don't intend to or want to. It just might mean you went below the bottom of the page and we're not really sure when that will happen to get to you. So be persistent.
That's great advice. Appreciate that. Absolutely, and on the road I hear all the time from students who reach out to faculty members, and they're not even admitted students at that point, and how they've been able to engage with our faculty member outside of connecting through us. So I do appreciate the accessibility that you all offer to our prospective students. Now I want to talk about just another area. So we also know that sometimes we can't be all things to all people. And I want to talk about your networks, because I know you all come in with a wide variety of experiences, and so how do you leverage your networks to connect your students with folks maybe within the Brown School or outside of the Brown School community?
Sure. I'll go first. So I've had a large practice experience interfacing with a lot of behavioral health organizations, both here in Missouri as well as in Michigan. I know lots of social workers around the country. I went to school with social workers because I'm a social worker. So I have a pretty large, national network of people that I know, which is also one of the reasons why it's important to get to know us, because connections and networking is how we get our next jobs. And I am constantly connecting people to people in Michigan, former colleagues of mine, or people that I've worked on projects for, or people I went to school with, so that they can leverage that. Or locally, I know all the high-level administrators of all the behavioral health organizations. And so if people are looking for jobs and they need recommendations, these are ways in which we as faculty, have long arms in terms of who we know, and not that we can get you jobs, but we are a very good resource for understanding how organizations work, who to talk to, who to connect with, and I think beyond that, then compounding all of our career services and accessing career services early in the process is really important.
That's great. Other thoughts?
Yeah, I would say that, so whoever asked that question, that's a high five, because I think that leveraging connections is probably one of the most important things that you can do outside of getting your diploma and the skills that you would acquire as a graduate student. The network piece is really big, and so having access to different people's networks. So I'm in public health. Before I started my public health career, or at the very beginning of it, I was at the National Institutes of Health, I was at the National Institute of Drug Abuse, so I still know people at NIH, I know a lot of people at Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. I went to graduate school at Michigan, so I still have a lot of people that are in the field around the country who are on the West Coast, in the Midwest, in the South, and I can leverage those connections. So there's also foundations that fund a lot of the work that we do in public health, like Robert Wood Johnson Foundation or Annie Casey and Kellogg Health Scholars Program, and all these different programs and networks that create opportunities for students. And so being aware of those things, I can pass those opportunities along to students. The same thing with fellowships. Oftentimes people, when they finish our program, if they're in public health, oftentimes to get into a CDC or NIH, for instance, you need a fellowship. Or if you want to go into hospital administration or something like that, you need a fellowship. So we're aware of what fellowships there are. People like Ross Bronson, for instance, is very well connected at CDC. And I think that we can help our students. We can't give them jobs per se, but we can point them in the right direction, and we can point them into the direction of people that we know. And that's really how the world works, is who you know.
Absolutely. So let me ask you another question on maybe another angle on also these relationships. We often hear from our students that they actually have real relationships with our faculty members. And some would call them mentorships. And so I'm just curious from you all, just from a faculty's perspective, what does mentorship look like? What do your relationships look like with students who are members of our community?
And so for me, it can be anywhere from being their professor, but also mentoring in terms of my research project. I've developed real close relationships from students that have transitioned sort of into that. They may need also assistance with finding jobs, being networking, or being connected somehow within the community. But it really is this role of learning on my part as well too. So it's a strong mentor-mentee relationship, and just really being able to sort of hear each other out, giving them the resources that they need, while also assisting me as well. So it really is it's sort of a wonderful balance for me.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Sarita and and Ryan are both being modest. I think they're phenomenal mentors, and I can learn a lot from you all in terms of the mentoring that you all provide. I think that just trying to develop, I think that's one of the great things about our school is that we are accessible, and we try to develop relationships with students inside and outside of the classroom. And so whether it's working on a research project or something around professional development, we're always trying to help students and develop relationships with students that are more than just, I know who this student is, but really vested in the progress of a student. So I think that takes a form. I think each relationship is different, but we have a very open door policy.
Yeah, I mean, I have relationships in lots of different ways, whether I serve as a practicum supervisor on projects that I work in. They're in the classroom, or people just walk by and they land in my office. I have kinetic sand for all the distressing days. You know, mentorship takes lots of different forms, and you know, there's formal mentorship, there's informal mentorship, and I think the key part is all of our faculty, we care about our students, and we know that our students are going on to do really important things, and I think most of us are either in research, education, or both of that because we had that mentorship ourselves.
Yep.
And we know that we can bring those models of mentorship forward and help to know that these challenges are huge that we're trying to address, and we need a very, very large cohort of people staying in this profession and to do it well. And I think that we're probably all pretty much motivated by that.
That's great. So I think we have a few more questions here. I'm not sure if we have had some that have come in from, okay, excellent. So we've actually had some questions that have come in during our live broadcast, so we'll go there next. All right, so here's a question about our social work program. Is it possible to combine the mental health concentration or the clinical track with both policy and research specializations? So the answer to that is yes.
Yes.
So you would have to pick, of course, whatever of our specialization would work for you. The way our program works is you have a certain number of elective hours, and so if you are a mental health concentration MSW student, take a look at our options. I think we have 5 or 6 specializations. You can choose one. All your elective credit hours will go towards your specialization, and you'll get a chance to learn about that. The other thing I will put out there is we are starting our Master of Social Policy, which is available to admitted Brown School students as well. So if you're interested in a deeper dive in policy work, there will be an opportunity for you to explore that once you arrive at the Brown School. Our second question we have here says, are students allowed to choose their practicum sites or decide which populations they want to work with as a part of the MSW? So kind of another laser focused question, but the answer to that one for sure is yes.
Yeah.
We have a model that we have over 300 social work practicum sites and over 100 public health practicum sites, and so there's a wide variety. And the great thing about our program is you get 3 advisors: academic, faculty, and a field advisor. And your field advisor is the person who will work with you to connect with either research or local agencies to get actual practice and experience in the field, so you can do you can apply what you're learning in the classroom to the field. So absolutely, you will get a chance. You won't do it on your own because that's a lot to navigate, but you also need support, but you will ultimately get a chance to engage in that process. The question comes in, if international students who apply after March 1st, will they still be considered for any kind of scholarship? So I feel real bad because I'm doing a lot of talking here. I'll go and answer that one as well. The answer is yes. Excuse me. So far, our merit-based scholarships are both domestic and international students are eligible for our merit-based scholarships. And so again, based on what's available, we will look at your application, we will review it, and we will be able to assess a merit-based scholarship based on what's available at that time. All right. Okay, I think I can stop talking on this one. Can you tell me more about the collaborative environment that exists between Brown School students and the faculty at the med school?
Yeah, sure.
Gerald?
Yeah, sure. So being in public health, I have a lot of collaborators who are in schools of medicine, including our own school of medicine. I have a joint appointment with our Department of Psychiatry, and so I've brought students over to psychiatry, for instance, to conduct work. And so I have collaborators over there. We have space. I have another office over there, and so it creates a nice way to get students to the medical campus. We're only separated by like 2 miles, but sometimes it feels a lot further. But I think just getting people into the same space helps in order to kind of foster those transdisciplinary relationships. So there's a lot of people in our public health faculty and even our social work faculty who have either joint appointments or formal relationships with people in medicines. A number of us have appointments that are in offices. So like I said, going over there and spending time over there. And then there's lots of different opportunities to train. So I've always been surprised at how many faculty find our students. So they're able to find and identify some of our best and brightest students and snatch them and take them away to the medical school to work on different projects, whether it's during the semester as research assistants or like an internship or a practicum during the summertime. So there's lots of different ways to get involved with research over at the medical school.
That's great. Thank you. All right, so another question's come in. It says, how can students collaborate with faculty on international research projects? And so I'm not sure, do any of you have any international research projects or any of your colleagues that you can describe?
I don't, but I can describe some of the stuff that people. So we have a few different supports for students who want to do international work. One way is to work with faculty who have projects overseas. So it could be someone like Laura Ayanati, who's our Associate Dean for Public Health. She has projects in Ecuador and Haiti. It could be a number of people who do work, including our Dean, Dean McKay, who do work in Sub-Saharan Africa, particularly Ghana, Uganda, South Africa, places like that. So there's ways to get involved with that work. I think fostering, similar to domestic work, just trying to foster relationships with people and find out what opportunities there might be. Because people are always in need of support in terms of data collection, helping to administer surveys, helping to administer measures, or doing some type of evidence-based practice in different settings. There's a lot of different supports there. And then we have a Associate Dean for International Projects. And so that person is Carolyn Sorgel. She can help you to connect with different funding opportunities so that you can pay your flight and room and board, housing overseas. There's a number of different formal partnerships, like with Chinese universities, for instance. There's the McDonald Academy that supports work. So there's a ton of different resources to do international work.
Great.
And also there's a couple courses that are topics courses that are international in its focus. And they change from year to year.
I love that we have our reach is it's local, it's statewide, national, and international, and I think that you both have covered those really well. All right, so we have another question here that says, are all faculty strictly in the Brown School, or are any affiliated with other schools or departments across the university? So I know you talked a little bit about your medical school connection. Are there any other collaborations or affiliations that you hear that you're either involved in, or maybe some of our colleagues are involved in?
I am with African and African American Studies.
And Heather Cameron, who is our social entrepreneurship specialization chair, is appointed in the business school as well as in the Brown School. And I would imagine the majority have joint appointments in the medical school, and I'm not sure about the rest of them.
Yeah, and I think so. Sheridan and I both co-lead CRISMA, which is the Collaboration on Race, Inequality, and Social Mobility in America. And so that's a collaboration that stretches outside of the Brown School. So we have collaborators in education and sociology, medicine, other fields, and we're always looking for other people who do work related to race and inequality, and that's the big thing for us. So you'll find different centers and different collaborations that branch outside of the Brown School for sure.
Definitely at the project level.
I think that really highlights our transdisciplinary approach to solving really complex issues, and I love that idea that students get a chance to connect with you all who are connected outside of the Brown School. And if they want to, they can even take coursework based on their curriculum sequencing outside of the Brown School, and that we can find people who are members of our community in those locations as well. And so for our last live question that came in, for students who missed a Master's Research Fellowship deadline, when or how can they find out about research positions? So I'm guessing this is on a case-by-case basis, but generally speaking, how you kind of given some advice about connecting, networking to find out about research experiences. What would you recommend for students who are looking for research opportunities?
I mean, I guess for me, I would say if they're looking for research opportunities, again, going to the faculty profile, looking through the faculty members' research areas and I guess the centers that they're affiliated with, and then reaching out via email or through phone call. Again, I think we're all friendly. We can also have people that sort of stop by. But definitely going to the faculty profile that's on the Brown School website, I think that's one way.
That's great. Yeah, I think one of the things that I've experienced in my time working in admissions here at the Brown School is things that are not necessarily marketed or advertised, but a faculty member will find something that they're interested in working on. It could be even as late as the summer, and I've seen many students connect with them and found themselves in some pretty substantial research experience or field experiences. So I've seen multiple students who've come to the Brown School a little bit early and moved to St. Louis a little bit early to collaborate with faculty members. So I think you're right, just as informal as doing some emails and being being able to take a little bit of initiative and reaching out goes a long ways. And actually, that's a skill that if you're not comfortable with that, this is a great opportunity to start practicing some of those behaviors and being repetitive in those behaviors, so that they become a real strong skill and that will carry you the rest of your career. Okay. Okay. So this is I guess another question that just came in about if you have a relationship with a faculty member, or a faculty member has a relationship with a student, but yet the research areas of interest don't exactly match. Even if it's not necessarily aligning with what your areas of interest are, how do you support students in going in a direction that's not necessarily in line with what you're interested in?
Sure. I would say that you want to find someone who is going to support you. So support you in the development of your skills, your interests, to help you to develop into the professional, or if you're thinking about further schooling, pursuing a PhD, develop you into the scholar that you want to become. If you're interested in the PhD track, I always tell students that we're not looking for carbon copies of ourselves. Otherwise, there's no purpose of pursuing a PhD, because we've already got a person who's doing that work. So you want to have something that's unique and something that's not quite aligned with someone else's research, because otherwise, again, that puts you out of an opportunity. I think that for professionals, people who want to go into the field, oftentimes there is no perfect job. I mean, Ryan could probably tell you that from his years of experience, that there is no perfect job. So oftentimes you're trying to find the best fit. And I think it's a good opportunity while you're in classes and while you're doing practicum and working with faculty to figure out a way to take the skills that you're developing and perhaps put that in your toolbox so that you can take that with you to another opportunity down the line that will be a better fit for you. But again, it's not always going to be a 100% match. But again, you want to find people who will support you and help you to develop the skills that you need.
And I think whether you're in public health or in your social work, each of our programs are training generalizable skills. So whether or not there's an exact course on the population of interest or the specificity around that, we're giving you the skill sets to be able to apply that skill across many populations, people's communities, and areas. And if it's if you're interested in research or just understanding that, I think that gives you your baseline piece to that. But also within our courses, then you tailor your interest around that. So we have projects that can be around specific populations. So it might be a more broader course, but then you're gonna zero in on the population or area of interest that you have, and then you build your repertoire from that. So it's in many ways also very self-driven, because no program will always have like the research faculty is doing exactly what I'm doing, what I'm interested in doing. But also, there's a lot that's missing. There's many gaps, and also most of the time our interests are in the gaps. So I think that's something to think about.
So I just listening to the two of you speak, the three of you actually speak, it reminds me of something one of our alumni said, which is the ability to be nimble, because we know our careers, our interests aren't linear. I'm very happy for folks who are able to find exactly what it is that they want to do and carry that through for 40 or 50 year career. But for most of us, we get exposed to new experiences, new research, new ideas, new people, and that tends to expand and adjust. And so you don't have to know it all when you get here, but I think, of course, having the common thread of wanting to make a difference, wanting to support people through policy, practice, and research, and through social work and public health is really important, an important place to start. And then you'll have great people like these folks here who can help you find your way as guides from there. I do have one last question for the three of you. I'd love for the three of you to answer. And the question is, what's your advice to an incoming graduate student here at the Brown School? What piece of advice would you give that student? Do you want to start here and we'll work our way down?
Sure.
Not to put you on the spot, but
No, it's
I
all
think
right.
you can do it.
Embrace vulnerability and embrace your fallibility. And that when the point of learning something new is that we have to put ourselves out there. We have to be vulnerable in spaces in which we are used to protecting ourselves. And I think we have to understand that no human is perfect and no paper is perfect and that no assignment is perfect and no course is perfect. That fallibility is something the sooner you embrace, the more effective you can be in your program and in your future.
Thank you.
I would say be persistent and take advantage of the opportunities here.
In addition to those things, I would say don't procrastinate. So life starts to suck when you procrastinate too much. I would say if you could figure out a way to get things done, and this is something that employers will want to know, how do you handle multiple deadlines? How do you handle stressors at the same time? How do you hold all these different threads at the same time? And if you don't have a good answer for that, and you tell them I wait till the last minute because I work better under pressure, then you won't get hired. And so figuring out ways during the space where you can learn how to make it so that you're not procrastinating, you'll have a better quality life.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I appreciate that. I want to thank you three for joining us today and dedicating some time to us. I mean, I think this is a great example of, first of all, the three of you are a great example of the cross-section of our faculty and what they have to offer both inside and outside of the classroom, your dedication to the students. I've worked with each of you, just as a side note, in several capacities, and so it's just been an incredible experience to work with you there, and it's no surprise that you would show up time and time again to make sure that we're able to give some great people out there a great opportunity to join us here and be a part of our community at the Brown School. I want to thank you all for tuning in live today as well, and for those of you who are watching the replay, I appreciate your views. We're going to place some contact information up, as well as information about our next virtual information session. Again, if you want to get a hold of us, you can contact us at Brown Admissions at wustl.edu. Otherwise, thank you, and we'll see you next time.